Mayoral Forum for the City of Aurora. So a little disclaimer, this is the first mayoral forum that we've put on. We've been given the opportunity of doing it, so I greatly appreciate all the engagement from our candidates and the supporting organizations in this process. My name is Jamie Ray, and I'm the Community Corrections Liaison at the Second Chance Center. This is an educational forum put on by SCC and co-sponsored by the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition and the ACLU of Colorado. We are 501c3 organizations, and we do not endorse any of the candidates. We have two moderators tonight, JC and Dana Jenkins. They will start by giving each candidate 2 minutes for an opening speech, followed by 3 introduction questions, where the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer. After the opening question, the candidates will take questions from the audience. You should have been given a note card when you came in. Please write your questions on the card, and a volunteer will be around to collect them. They will then be read by the moderators, and the candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. We will close out the night with a 2-minute closing statement. The order for the opening statements will be alphabetical by last name. Then we will reverse the order for the questions. Just some basic housekeeping. The bathrooms are located behind this curtain, off to your left here. Also, please silence all of your phones. Please note that candidates participating tonight cannot campaign or solicit any votes. This evening is for public education purposes only. We also would like to give a huge thank you to the People's Building, located on Florence and Colfax. This building is in the heart of Aurora and has many great events, so we appreciate them holding this event tonight. Also, just a disclaimer as well, we did invite all the candidates to participate tonight. Ryan Frazier did RSVP as well, so we have the name tag up there for him as well. I will now hand it over to JC so we can begin.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for attending the 2019 Mayoral Candidate Forum. My name is Justin Cooper. I will be joined by my colleague, Dana Jenkins, and we are going to be your moderators for this evening. A couple of housekeeping things. If folks could silence their cell phones, that would be greatly appreciated. Secondly, if folks need to use a restroom at any point in time, it's going to be to your left, down this way. The third thing, please note that candidates who are participating tonight cannot campaign or solicit any votes from the audience. So please note that according to our 501c3 nonpartisan rules, candidates, please understand that you cannot solicit votes tonight, nor campaign tonight. I'll give you an example. In the answering of your questions, you may say, if I am your candidate, or if I am elected, or if you choose to elect me. You cannot say vote for me, to be explicit and clear. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather. As my colleague Jamie highlighted tonight, you will be yielded 2.5 minutes for an opening statement. Once you complete your opening statement, we have prepared 3 written questions that you will be yielded 2 minutes to answer. We will go in alphabetic order in reference to the opening statement, and then we will go in reverse order in reference to the closing statement. Similar to that order, will be the same for all questions that you receive this evening. I do have to note, please understand, just in respect of your time and the audience's time, my colleague Danny and I will stop you at 2 minutes exactly. As a common courtesy to you and the audience, please understand it's no disrespect, but we want to make sure that you, A, get equal opportunity to answer the question and the yielded amount of time afforded to you. Excellent. All right. At this point in time, we will go ahead and get started. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one other thing. After you respond to the written questions, next you will receive questions from the audience. These questions will be screened by our screeners, and for the purposes, again, of us being C3 compliance and nonpartisan coalition, we have to ensure that we are in compliance. And what screening means is that our screeners will look for 4 specific things from any questions coming from the audience. 1, they will make sure that there is no direct attack question towards any of the candidates participating today. 2, they will look for grouping questions that are heavily weighted in one specific area. 3, they will make sure that questions are diverse in reference to the issues that you'll be asked about tonight. And 4, they will make sure that there is no direct statements that are not questions that are soliciting to vote for you from the audience. Those are the 4 things that make sure that questions from the audience, including the written questions, are C3 compliant. We do have time timers. So we encourage you as candidates to make sure that you're paying attention to our timers. They're going to be located here. They will notify you when you are at 1 minute. They will then notify you when you are at 30 seconds. They will notify you when you are at 10 seconds, and then when your time is up. So I invite the candidates to please make sure they were paying attention to our timers. If there's any questions in reference to time or anything come up, we're completely flexible. Just let us know. We want to make sure you have an equal opportunity to A, make an opening statement, answer all questions, and a closing statement.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we allowed to attack candidates who are not here?
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm all over that one. Okay.
Candidates are participating tonight are absolutely allowed to make statements as it relates to your campaigning and candidacy as long as it's not a solicitation for a vote.
Understood. And final question.
Yes.
You stated we could not solicit votes. Are we, in our responses, if we state as mayor, is that the same thing?
That is not the same
Okay.
thing, right? That's an inference. That's not a solicitation. It is more of a statement. A solicitation is saying, vote for me because,
Okay.
or vote for me tonight, or register to vote for me. That's a solicitation. A statement in reference to an inference as far as the actual seat that you are running for is not considered a solicitation.
Understood. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions from the candidates? All right. I want to say thank you to the candidates for participating tonight. We apologize that we're starting relatively late. We're going to work diligently to make sure that you are yielded the adequate time as you receive the RSVP for this event. But thank you for your patience and your flexibility.
Thank you.
All right. We will start with opening statements from the candidates. Like I mentioned, you will have 2.5 minutes to make an opening statement. We're going to go in alphabetical order, which means that Ms. Graves, you will start first with your opening statement. You have 2.5 minutes, and your time starts now.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Tiffany Graves. I am running for mayor of Aurora. I'm an Aurora, Colorado native. Raised my children here, went to school here, and have witnessed over and over and over again the rights of people being violated, the plight of people in this city to achieve, and the fundamental lack of being able to accomplish those dreams. I believe that the people of this city deserve an opportunity to be everything that they want to be. I believe that our children deserve an opportunity to be free and to succeed. And I believe that under the current state of affairs, that those plights are truly diminished. I saw the options that were available and believed that even though there's some new faces amongst them, that those faces did not offer the stability and the accountability that's going to be required in order for the residents and citizens of this city to have the life and the dreams that they hope to achieve. And that's what afforded me the opportunity to run. As mayor, I hope to be the leader that affects change for the people at large, a leader that that makes others accountable for their actions, and a leader that improves change for the benefit of the people. Without the people, we really don't have a city, and we really don't have a reason to be doing things and to be acting and making decisions. The people need to be the core of what we do. The people need to be the core of how we move forward. And with a leader that's for the people and about the people, we will definitely get that. So as Tiffany Graves, a candidate for the people, candidate from this city and for Aurora, I encourage you to participate in this democracy and make a wise decision. Thank you.
Ms. Graves, you still have 20 seconds remaining in your time. Would you like to yield that time or use that time?
I don't need to fill the time. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. All right, next is Mr. Montgomery. You will have 2.5 minutes for your opening statement. Your time starts now.
First of all, I want to thank the Second Chance Center and the ACLU for putting this forum together. I think it's timely. I'd like to share a quick story that'll dive into my intro. When I first became president of the Aurora branch of the NAACP. One of my first cases was a young lady who had KKK scrolled on her door. Working with Aurora PD and some community organizations, we were able to help that young lady get moved into a secret location. But what that told me was that as diverse as our city is, there's still some people there who needs to be educated about what true diversity is. And as mayor, I want to make sure that every single person that lives in our city feels welcome, that they have access to the opportunities that are here, whether it's jobs, whether it's being able to open a small business, whether it's able to get into an apprenticeship program so that you can be a part of the building of the city as it continues to grow. I want to make sure we have an Aurora that embraces all the great things about our open space, about our environment, and protecting our land, protecting our water, and protecting our air. As a person who's looking to lead the city, I look forward to serving you, and I'm looking forward to serving you and making sure that we work as one and that everyone is engaged in the municipal process to make decisions in the city. Thank you. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Next, we will transition into our written questions. There are 3 questions that candidates will answer. Before we do that, I do want to make one other quick announcement. Please note, candidates, that this particular forum is being live streamed. Wanted to note that as well. And so next we'll go into our 3 written questions. We will now go in reverse order, alphabetically, and we will start with our first opening written question.
For both candidates, with the almost daily and weekly incidents of the overuse of force resulting in death by law enforcement personnel, with almost exclusively Black and Latino victims, what is your position on establishing a truly independent review process that would result in real accountability? Mr. Montgomery.
I've been on record several times stating that that is a must. We must have an independent review committee, one, because we have to establish community trust. As president of the Aurora branch of the NAACP, I have watched too many video cams, watching parents whose child has taken their last breath via video. And when you see that family go through that trauma and they put trust into the law enforcement process, it's another police agency investigating another police agency, then Civil Service Commission, and then you have the DA's office. And all these different entities work together. You need to have an independent process to gain community trust and to make sure you have a thorough evaluation of the evidence. With that stated, I'll also say I do think there are some good police officers out there who are the ones that run into fire, the one that saves someone out of a burning car and all those different things. I think we have some that's doing some good work. But at the same time, we need a process to get rid of those that abuse their power so that we can maintain a safe city that everyone will feel like they can trust that law enforcement agency. Because when you don't have that, that's when you have civil unrest, and that's when you have people exercising their First Amendment rights at your office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Ms. Graves.
Can you please repeat?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
With the almost daily and weekly incidents of the overuse of force resulting in death by law enforcement personnel, with almost exclusively Black and Latino victims, what is your position on establishing a truly independent review process that would result in real accountability?
Accountability is exactly what I said I am looking to bring to this city. And accountability is exactly what's missing as to why these occurrences are happening almost daily. It's because of those long, prolonged review processes that lead to unanswered questions and the restrictions on personnel who are capable of acting on behalf of the citizens who choose not to do so for multiple reasons. Accountability is the only way that we are going to positively affect change in that circumstance. Independent review board is a part of that accountability, but on the reverse side of that, a review board who does not have the ability to make decisions, to implement decisions based on their own reviews, is a review board similar to those that we have today. And so what we need is accountability, and we need that through ordinances which specifically prohibit behaviors. We need that through a third-party, publicly elected committee that reviews these happenings, that makes decisions on them, and that has the ability to make decisions that truly hold others accountable for their actions. Having dealt with the police and abuse myself, having witnessed it, and in hearing names like Elijah McClain being brought up over and over at council meetings, and witnessing our council not take appropriate action are the reasons why we need a leader who's willing to do something for the people and to hold those who ought to be held accountable.
Thank you.
Our next written question, we'll go in reverse order, starting with you, Ms. Graves. Year after year, the criminal caseload in Aurora has gone up dramatically. In the first half of 2018, we saw a 73% increase in the caseload of the Public Defender's Office, largely for petty crimes. What are you going to do, if elected, to reverse the costly trend of criminalization of poverty in Aurora? Ms. Graves, you have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Being a victim of that same process, being incarcerated, harassed, and defamed by city officials, by Aurora police officers, and then coming into the Aurora Municipal Court, and then being treated as though I was a criminal who committed some severe act, I understand firsthand the issues in our judicial system. A part of that issue is the fact that the system has the ability to deny public representation to people that deserve it. And this system is set up to keep us oppressed through financial dependence on third parties. Getting wages, making money off of people who are just trying to live is not the way to go. What we need to do is implement better educational systems that can provide better opportunities for the residents who live here. We need to train and direct our employees in our public services offices on how to deal with members of the public, especially seeing that we're no longer a city that is primarily Caucasian. We are a diverse city, and we need to deal with people in a way that is different because we are not the same city that we used to be. That education has not been passed down to people who are interacting with the public on a regular basis, as well as the accountability is missing when these public representatives do not follow the lines of the law.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. You're still yielding 30 seconds. Would you like to yield that time or take that time?
I thought it was at 10 seconds. Okay. It's
Thank you, I appreciate it. Mr. Montgomery, would you like for me to repeat the question, or you feel confident in proceeding?
Could you repeat it?
Yes. Year after year, the criminal caseload in Aurora has gone up dramatically. In the first half of 2018, we saw a 73% increase in the caseload of the Public Defender's Office, largely for petty crimes. What are you going to do, if elected as mayor, to reverse the costly trend of criminalization of poverty in Aurora? Mr. Montgomery, you have 2 minutes, and your time starts now.
I think that poverty part is probably the most important. Sitting in court with a lot of people, especially in the Aurora Municipal, I was disheartened when you go to court and if incarceration is not on the table, you're not given a public defender, meaning that you either have to have money to hire an attorney or have some type of legal representation pro bono. Meaning that you're defending yourself against a trained defendant. And the average person that I know probably didn't go to law school. They probably go home and do everything. They may watch Law and Order, but they're not trained attorneys. If I was in a position to lead the city, I would try to provide an ordinance where every single person has representation when they go in court. Second, I think for nonviolent crimes, we need to have an increase in diversion programs, both youth and adult, and that at the end of that diversion program, they're able to have their records expunged or erased. And I think I teach a lot of court classes. I've taught drug and alcohol, I've taught parenting and things of this nature. I think those are things that need to be offered on the front end in lieu of a fine. And if a person cannot afford those classes, that we have a fund that those classes can be taken care of. And last but not least, making sure that we increase mental health services and not criminalizing people for public behaviors such as drug addiction and things of this nature. Let's look at the symptoms as to why they did that petty theft and not criminalize them for the petty theft. Thank you.
All right, the same thing this time as we'll start with Mr. Montgomery. Here's the question. You believe we overuse the criminal justice system as the response to public health and safety. And what would you do different if elected mayor of Aurora?
Could you repeat that question?
Do you believe we overuse the criminal justice system as the response to public health and safety? What would you do different if elected to mayor of Aurora?
I think I sort of led into that probably in my previous answer, where we have opioid addiction. I wish we had the same sympathy for opioids that we had for crack, that we had for when marijuana was a drug that people were being arrested for. But now we have these monies and these grants and things of this nature. So I don't want people being arrested because they have a health issue, an addiction issue. Let's get them the help they need so then afterwards they can be productive members in society. I like programs like the Bridge House. The Bridge House and Ready to Work, where we're not criminalizing our people that are unhoused, we're actually putting them in a place where they can go, have a job, and at the end of that program, be able to get an apartment and be placed in a location where they can give back to society. I truly believe we have so many things within our power, and especially within the city of Aurora, to where we can have diversions and not criminalize, and get people in a place where they can not have to spend time in jail being incarcerated or wasting taxpayers' money being incarcerated, but get the help they need so that they can go back and provide for their families, provide for themselves, and once again be able to be a productive member of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Ms. Graves?
Yes, I would say that we do overuse the criminal justice system. That overuse is comprised of multiple facets, one being the homeless population, one being minority populations, poverty populations. And at the root of it, the system was designed to keep people oppressed. So it is functioning the way that it was designed to, what it was designed to do. Our schools are funneling our children into prisons, are funneling our children into our court systems, and it's growing that field of choosable options in which to incarcerate. I believe that the city of Aurora has performed these actions for a reason, which is it has allowed the city to increase its revenues on the backs of its people because the city does not have large revenues from large corporations lots of businesses here who are bringing in large financial streams into this city. So our court system has been used as a financial tool for the city. In order to change that dependence upon the people, we need to bring in financial streams to the city. A part of that is capitalizing on the marijuana industry. We have not done that in this city. It's over $1 billion at this point, and to see only 37 million, it sounds like a lot, but that's really just a drop in the bucket. If we can increase revenues, we can use those revenues to better train our public service workers. We can use those revenues to provide systems for our students in our school systems, to put them in public service works, careers, as well as using those funds to help fund opportunities and programs for our homeless and those addicted to drugs.
Thank you, Ms. Graves.
That completes the written question phase of our mayoral candidate forum. We will now pivot to questions from the audience. I would like to announce and invite the audience, if you have not yet, please feel free to raise your hand or see our volunteers at the front who have note cards in which you can propose a question. A volunteer will come get the question from you. Those questions then will be screened by our screeners for C3 compliancy and then brought to us as moderators, in which we will ask the candidates the questions coming from the audience. In addition, just to highlight for the candidates, we also have questions that have been prepared that came from community. You were, if I recall correctly, the Second Chance Center may have sent you questions from a voter guide from community. We have also provided that voter guide to the audience tonight, in which we will also ask questions from that voter guide as well. We will now start the audience question phase of the mayoral candidate forum. All right. I'm starting in reverse order. Mr. Montgomery, we will start with you. The question from the audience states, starting with Ms. Graves, I apologize, in reverse order from the last, from our written statements. Ms. Graves, audience question states, what are your views with the relationships City Council has with groups such as GEO and Aurora Chamber of Commerce? Ms. Graves, you have 2 minutes to answer this question, and your time starts now.
The question was, what are my views on the relationship?
Happy to repeat the question
Yes,
for you.
please.
The question states, what are your views? Excuse me one second. Again, I want to remind the audience, if you could please silence your cell phones, that would be greatly appreciated. Ms. Graves, the question from the audience states, what are your views with the relationships City Council has with groups such as GEO and the Aurora Chamber of Commerce? You have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Thank you. I believe that as a council, it is imperative that you have positive, transparent relationships with groups within the community. It's important that you have trust, that you're able to communicate effectively, and you're able to work together to provide the best benefit for the residents and the citizens within the city. In speaking directly with GEO and the Chamber of Commerce, I am not privy to what exact relationship is being referenced and or being questioned. So I can't really speak to that, but what I can speak to is I believe that Aurora has made some decisions that have negatively impacted the community at large and has made those decisions based on revenue streams that the residents of this city have not seen the benefit of. I believe that there's better decisions that can be made. Again, decisions made for the people of this city and not for the elected officials nor the business entities that have invested interest in those decisions. Decisions have to be How is it going to impact the citizens of this city? How is it going to make their lives better? And if it's not, then what is our reasoning behind taking this action?
Ms. Graves, you're still yielded about 20 seconds. Do you want to take that time or yield that time?
No, sir, I will yield it.
Thank you. Mr. Montgomery, would you like for me to repeat the question, or you feel confident?
Please continue.
I will repeat the question. Audience question states, what are your views with the relationship City Council has with groups such as GEO and Aurora Chamber of Commerce? Mr. Montgomery, you have 2 minutes and your time starts now.
I had a chance to visit the GEO Center. And all the mayoral candidates was invited to go visit. And Tiffany, this was prior to you coming on board, so you probably didn't receive that invitation. What was disheartening was to see people who are looking for asylum or looking for citizenship being housed with people who have committed crime. So number one, I have a problem with just a private entity being in the criminal justice field in any situation. But when we begin to talk about people where they're only looking for a better way of life, being detained, I don't care how beautiful they say the facility is, what the health care is like, and things of this nature. The bottom line is that people should not be housed or detained like criminals in a private facility. They shouldn't be in it whatsoever. With that stated, Aurora Chamber of Commerce, I think they do have a role. They have a role in how they attract businesses to the city of Aurora. They support small businesses. They have a diversity group that works with the community defense and all that great stuff. But I think you're more so insinuating the relationship between GEO and the chamber, which is separate from the city council and the chamber. And I think that the Aurora Chamber of Commerce have to make that decision and how they interact with organizations like GEO or anything else or any other entity that could be controversial. But as for the city side, the city leans somewhat on the Chamber of Commerce to work with businesses and entities that's going to generate revenue for the city in a positive way.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. This is another question from the audience. This one is about transportation.
Yeah.
What is your plan to improve bus lines that run near 25th Street? There are 4 to 6 blocks in either direction that you have to go to make a connection
25th Street?
in North Aurora.
Oh, in North Aurora. Okay. Well, you know, the unique thing about RTD is that they are a regional transportation system. And with being a regional transportation system, sometimes you, as a person in leadership in the city, have to go in and advocate for your city. If RTD cannot meet the demand of our growing population, then we as a city have to think about innovative ways to address it. We have a taxi company right here in Aurora that's being underutilized. What about some of those passes that we give to the buses go to that taxi so that we can reduce a person's first mile and last mile of getting to their destination? Because if we wait on RTD, we may be waiting for a while. So we need to use the resources within our city and use those companies within the city of Aurora because they're going to circulate that dollar a certain amount of times. It'll go into our tax base, and we can continue to provide services to our residents. So to me, if we're talking about RTD transportation only, because that's when we're talking about the bus stop, that would be my solution, is looking at alternatives to get people to the major arteries of the city, such as the parking rides, such as the train stations, so we can reduce that last and first mile so people can get home and get to work in a timely manner.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Ms. Graves?
A part of the transportation issue is the fact that Aurora is growing so fast and growing so wide that it's hard to keep up. Even though we've attracted some new businesses and corporations here, the primary amount of those businesses are not paying livable wages to our citizens and residents here, which is not affording them the opportunities to purchase their own vehicles to travel as they need to. And so if we're really talking about addressing transportation issues, let's also address the issue of affordable housing and livable wages, because those play a big part in why people are living in these areas that don't have a lot of access to transportation in the first place. I believe that we need to attract bigger and better corporations to this city, and I believe a part of that is a part of creating a downtown Aurora. When we look at cities that are a third of the size of Aurora, Longmont, Boulder, these places have downtowns. They have a central place of business, they have a central place of opportunity, they have a central place of recreation, and that central place attracts businesses, attracts transportation districts to come in to encourage people to use their services. And so if we can do a better job of creating a place that is a centralized place for all Aurorans, then we can hopefully reduce that load on transportation and be able to provide better options for the people living here. In lieu of creating a downtown, I think it's also about the growth outwards instead of upwards. The farther we go, the harder it's going to be able to move around. And so we need to look at using the spaces and buildings that we have that are empty versus creating new spaces further out.
Thank you, Ms. Graves. All right. Our next question is going to draw from the voter question guide from the constituents and the voters of Aurora. And Mr. Montgomery, we will be starting with you. This question states, oh, sorry, Ms. Graves. Ms. Graves, right? Okay, Ms. Graves, I apologize, we're going to be starting with you.
Okay.
All right. The question raised is, there is a growing public concern about the use of the current open space in Aurora. Please tell us how concerned you are with the use of open space, and if elected mayor, what would you do about it? Ms. Graves, you have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Thank you. And first, let me apologize to all of you out there. I have not had a chance to go through these questions and answer them, so this will be truly from my heart and unrehearsed. As far as open spaces in this city, I think we need more. We don't have a lot of options for our children to entertain themselves in a variety of ways. We do have some parks, but we don't have enough. And I think there's more that we can do with the open space. We're not capitalizing on all of that open space, especially when it comes to the marijuana industry. We could be using space for that. We have space that we could be using to build affordable housing for people. We do have a complex going up now, but the load is heavy and we definitely need more. And as well as we need better entertainment options for adults and children in this city. We can make better use of those open spaces and provide better incentives and benefits to our residents and businesses here in the city and create a better Aurora for all. Thank you.
Ms. Graves, you still have 45 seconds left. Do you want to take the rest of your remaining time or yield that time?
I will always yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graves. Mr. Montgomery, would you like for me to repeat the question, or are you confident to proceed?
I think I'm confident to proceed.
Excellent. You have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
We, in Aurora, as we begin to develop and as we begin to grow, one of the things that is beautiful about our city is our open space. It's our parks, our bike routes, our ability to have dog parks and things of this nature. But as we grow, those things can be in jeopardy. So when the company begins to put in a site plan, I think it's mandatory to talk about how they want to incorporate open space within that site plan. So that, one, we can continue to have active transportation routes where people can walk to work, bike to work, and things of this nature, but also continue to enjoy the outdoors. When you have outdoor space, that also protects the environment. So we need to make sure that not only as we grow, we're protecting our open space, but also make sure we're maintaining the open space that we have. And if there's plans to build on that open space, we need to be very cautious about improving it, because it can begin to impact those things I just talked about: bike routes, walking to work, and things of this nature. Last but not least, when we talk about open space, we also got to talk about xeriscaping. We got to talk about water, how do we conserve water, and so it's more than just having an open space, it's also maintaining the open space. So, and I do the rest of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. The next question is, how as mayor of Aurora will you address the homeless issues in Aurora? Mr. Montgomery.
And that's something I've already started to do. And being an advocate for a program I talked about earlier, the Bridge House. Before I talk about the Bridge House, if you go right across the street, under the Martin Luther King statue, where the MLK Library is our largest homeless population. And as mayor, I want to make sure that they're included in the decision-making in regards to their future. I will hold town hall meetings with them like I've already done. I will make sure that we're not talking for them, but they're talking to us. One of the families told me, said, hey, if you could have a place where I can put my animals while I go to work, that would help. So maybe a day shelter for the animals. Making sure that when we have companies that come here to Aurora, that they hire within that community first, put them in the training programs, put them in apprenticeship programs, and then doing a vacancy study within the city of Aurora, using our existing inventory to house them, so as they work, receive the wraparound service, and when they're done, then we can open that space up for other people. There's a lot of things that we can do if you have leadership that is willing to do it and not look at our unhoused population as a problem, but look at them as part of our city in Aurora and deserve to be treated with the best care. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Ms. Graves.
As mayor, I believe that the homeless issue is multifaceted. It's a part of it stems from addiction, a part of it stems from poverty, but the other side of it is the system in which creates homelessness. We talked about how the system encourages detainment and how it's being abused and overused for that purpose. In addition to just detaining these people, we are putting fines on them. We are putting crimes on their criminal histories. We are putting requirements on them, probation fees, waive fees, all of these things for these petty crimes that may or may not have occurred. So in addressing our homeless issue, we must also address how this issue has come to be in our city. And so accountability for those who interact with our homeless populations, to not criminalize them just for being homeless itself. We also need to look at our criminal justice system and ensure that we're not penalizing people who have not committed crimes, that we work with people and understand the financial constraints on their ability to pay these fines and fees, and choose to get them out of the system versus keep them in for their lack of financial independence. And we also need to talk about affordable housing through livable wages. That's something that's reoccurring and coming up in multiple conversations, and until we really address the financial issue, we're really just playing catch up. Thank you.
Is there an opportunity also to go back and add to, or just that's it?
That's it. Grace, I think that you yielded some, you had 20 seconds left. Did you want to take that time or yield that time?
I've said enough, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll go in reverse order, starting with Ms. Graves.
Okay.
The Arapahoe County Detention Center is nearly full, and the county must decide whether to build a bigger jail or pursue ways to safely reduce the jail population, such as expanding community-based mental health and addiction services that prevent people from committing crime. Do you think Arapahoe County should build a new jail or pursue ways to safely reduce the jail population? Ms. Graves, we will start with you. You have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Can I ask a question first? Are we allowed to speak about ballot measures? Or, okay, I didn't know if it was
Yes.
C3. Okay. So I believe that this relates to ballot measure 1A. And as a community member who's been inside of Arapahoe County Jail and experienced the mistreatment and inhumane treatment similarly to the jail facility, it is not the fix to make a bigger space, because all people are going to do is fill that space up. What we need to do is to encourage our public service workers to follow the lines of the law, to treat people fairly, and to detain folks who need to be detained appropriately and adequately. And in doing just those things, the amount of the population within the jail would be reduced, as well as addressing addiction. And that's a big component of a lot of people who are incarcerated at this time. And so addressing addiction and addressing the homeless situation will also improve the population in the sheriff's here in Arapahoe. But building a bigger jail, much like building a bigger highway, is just inviting more traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graves. You had 30 seconds left. Would you like to take the opportunity?
No on 1A. Vote no on 1A. Thank you.
Mr. Montgomery, would you like for me to repeat the question, or do you feel confident proceeding?
I think I feel confident proceeding, and I would take the option where we look at alternatives to incarcerating people who are nonviolent offenders. Poverty plays a part into it, mental health plays a part into it, addiction plays a part into it. There are several state initiatives that were passed in this last session that's actually going to decrease beds that's needed in detentions. So if we put this debt that's going to take us 30 years to pay off on residents, and we're not going to be able to fill it anyway because some of these measures that's going to take place is going to reduce the number of people that's going to be arrested for certain things, then I think we're jumping ahead. There are some things that need to be done at the jail, such as doing something with the bottleneck between those that are trying to get off on bail and that is intake. I think if we do some capital development projects with that particular area, we can reduce the bottleneck. And then as you begin to see a decrease in beds, where they're talking about they need classroom space and things of this nature, then you can repurpose certain parts of the jail while at the same time fixing the infrastructure so there's a place that could be, where you can have some type of, where you can house people, but we can repurpose that space where beds are not being used for classroom space, wraparound services, and things of this nature. So I'm not in support of expanding the Arapahoe County Jail, and I stand with my colleague here and say vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. You have 30 seconds left. Would you like to take the opportunity of that time or yield that time?
I wouldn't take I would say that, we're moving into, you're beginning to see more states do everything they can to reduce the number of people that are being incarcerated. One, it costs to incarcerate a person daily. And that is becoming to impact the budgets on counties and local municipalities. But also there's a humanity part to it too. Because people cannot afford an attorney or cannot afford bail, they should not
Thank you,
be
Mr. Montgomery. That actually is your time.
after you get it.
Next audience question. As mayor of Aurora, would you be willing to work with local leaders to create a racial justice or anti-racism plan to address the inequities in our city? Mr. Montgomery.
Yes. With the NAACP, we work with several different coalitions to make that happen now. And as we begin to see a rise in hate groups, hate rhetoric, whether if it's in communities, whether if it's online, whether if it's in high schools, whether if it's in colleges, we need to have a coalition that's going to put out one curriculum that we can begin to put in our middle school, elementary school system, where we can begin to eradicate hate, where we can begin to talk about equities and inequities early, so that when these people get in leadership positions, they understand the power that they have if they're judging people based on race, based on ethnicity, based on their economic circumstances and things of this nature. And also, we need to hold those people accountable who have exercised their privilege or exercised their power to discriminate against groups. And when you have advocacy groups that can do that, there's a few things they can do. One, provide legal aid so that if something goes to court or something goes to civil court, the person has the capital and resources to fight it. Second, making sure that we're voting and holding our elected officials accountable to put in ordinances, policies, and laws and charter changes that address inequities so that we can have an equal society that everyone has access to the opportunities. I think those are things that we can do as elected officials, and I think that's things we can do as a community, because it's not just on the elected officials. It's about elected officials working with community to eradicate these inequities and eradicate hate.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Ms. Graves?
Please repeat the question.
Absolutely. As mayor of Aurora, would you be willing to work with local leaders to create a racial justice or anti-racism plan to address the inequities in our city?
Yes, I am willing to work with other leaders and am doing work on my own trail to adjust these racial inequities in our systems. If we're talking about really addressing them, and this is what spurred my run here, is if we don't have leadership who is following the words that come out of their mouths, and we don't have leadership who is holding themselves and others accountable to the laws and the rules of this city, we will never have equity and equality in this city. We are fighting a fight at the wrong end of the sword, if you will. We need to have leadership that is willing to implement laws and rules and policies that govern the actions of public service workers. And we also need to have those actions then communicated to the people in this city on how they need to operate in this city. If we go around saying that people need to do things and this is how they need to act, and when they go outside of those boundaries, there's no accountability, nothing will ever change. Crying wolf and actually fighting the wolf are two different things. We need a leader who's willing to do something about this problem, a leader who's willing to be accountable about this issue, and a leader who's willing to address it head on. Without a leader willing to do that, we're going to be running circles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Grace, you do have 20 seconds left. Do you want to take that time or yield that time?
I will yield that time.
Our next question, starting with you, Ms. Grace.
Okay.
Permanent supporting housing options in Aurora is a concern for many citizens. What are your plans to address the lack of supporting housing for Aurora's most vulnerable citizens? Ms. Grace, you have 2 minutes to answer the question. Your time starts now.
I I'm a little unclear on what supportive housing is. I believe that to mean treatment centers for substance abuse, supportive housing for our disabled and elderly people who are unable to afford housing here in the Aurora City. And so I will answer that question based on that frame. If we don't help people get over their addiction to substances, we will not have community members who are productively participating in our community, and we will have community members that are consistently depleting the resources in the community. And so solving the issue is providing a place where people can heal, where people can see a future for themselves, and people can actually take action to affect that future for themselves. In talking about this issue in relation to disabled and elderly people in the city who cannot afford housing here, it's the same for single mothers who are just unable to make ends meet, or those who have just come out of incarceration and cannot find gainful employment. We have to support our community if we want a community that supports us. It's a two-way street, and if we're only attacking it and looking at it from an angle of how does this affect me, we will never accomplish a city that Aurora truly can be. We have to work together in order to make this city a better city for all. Thank you.
Ms. Graves, you do have 20 seconds left. Do you want to take that time or yield that time?
I will yield that time.
Thank you. Mr. Montgomery, would you like for me to repeat the question, or do you feel confident proceeding?
Could you repeat?
Yes. Permanent supportive housing options in Aurora is a concern for many citizens. What are your plans to address the lack of supportive housing for Aurora's most vulnerable citizens? Mr. Montgomery, you have 2 minutes, and your time starts now.
There's a gentleman, for those who are familiar with the Colfax corridor, there's a gentleman that probably hangs out between the park area right next to MLK and goes across the street, probably in his 60s, in a wheelchair, and one of his eyes has been permanently injured. He just goes to the Day Resource Center, then he comes back. I wonder what happens when he gets cold. I wonder what happens just throughout the day. Where does this person go? Who's helping this person? Is he getting his medication? Is he being looked at? I would love to see the city of Aurora work with some of our private entities and some of our nonprofits to increase the number of permanent supportive housing for people like him. For some of our vets. And I think we can have Veterans Hospital and the Veterans Administration work on housing our vets. If you look at what took place in some of the cities on the East Coast and how they decreased some of their homeless, was first dealing with vets and working with the Veterans Administration to get housing for those that qualify for it that are vets. But we have people that are not vets. So working with our faith-based community, working with nonprofits, and having those types of partnerships and developers, and talking with developers. They want to invest in the community so that we can have permanent supportive housing, not just in one ward, but at least one in all 6 wards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery.
Please tell the voters in Aurora, what are your top 3 priorities if you are elected as mayor? Ms. Montgomery.
Top 3 priorities are, 1, meeting with each of our city council members so that we can have a cohesive city council so that we can take care of business. Part of the issues recently is that we've had a city council that's been somewhat spirited in their discussions. And some people have taken their toys and went over here. Some people have taken their toys and went over there. So to make sure the first 30 days we have a cohesive city council. After that, making sure we tackle infrastructure. We have a $20 million deficit in regards to roads, in regards to traffic and things of this nature, and making sure that we're maximizing companies that we've given exemptions to. Going back and checking to see if they really need those exemptions so that we can begin to build revenue to address our traffic, to address transportation and those issues. Affordable housing is another one. I like what we have with Elevation doing community land trust, but I think we need more community land trust options. I think we need to go back, once again, you heard me say before, do a vacancy study and make sure that we can get our most vulnerable housed, but also have multiple housing options for those who don't qualify for some of these programs, who's making between $25,000 and $60,000, but still can't afford to live in the city, sleeping in their cars and couch surfing. Making sure we have housing options for those individuals as well. And last but not least, when you do go back and rehab a property, you can do what was done in Denver. The average cost for a home is $340,000. In many cases, whether if that's a condo, a townhouse, or whatever. In Denver, they were able to rehab and hotel where the starting price point is $167,000. That's some of the innovation we must have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ms. Graves?
Can you please repeat the question?
Absolutely. Please tell the voters in Aurora, what are your top 3 priorities if you're elected as mayor?
The economy here in Aurora is a very on the top of my list. What I hope to do with that, by increasing our production and or allowing more businesses who are in the marijuana industry into Aurora, we can significantly increase our revenues pretty quickly. We can use those increased revenues to build more affordable housing for residents and citizens in the city. We can use that increased revenue to provide incentives to developers to develop here in the city, and maybe even some incentives to larger corporations to come here as well. Secondarily, it is all about the safety and opportunity for those in this city. Our citizens and residents need to know they're safe, whether it's from ICE, whether it's from APD, whether it's from teachers at school. They need to know that they have a leader and a person who is in their best interest in their corner, and someone who's going to stand for the right thing and do something in the face of adversity. And lastly, it's about equity and equality for all. Being one of the most diverse cities here in the country at this moment, we can no longer operate the way that we used to. We can no longer have the same ideals and the same policies in place because we are dealing with literally a new generation of people. And so we need to positively affect change that encourages our participation with these new individuals and includes them in the progression of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graves.
Our next audience question started with you, Ms. Graves. Do you think the citizens of Aurora should have input in the selection of the new police chief? Why or why not? Ms. Graves, you have 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
I believe that every person that a decision affects should be able to give input if they so desire it. And that input should be regarded and treated as though it were an elected official's opinion, especially because the decisions that are made by that new chief will ultimately affect the citizens of this city. And so I believe it's imperative that citizens have a direct input into that decision, and that input is evenly distributed between the citizens, between elected officials, and between any other board that was governed to make that decision. That would conclude my answer.
Okay, Ms. Graves, you do have 30 seconds left. Do you want to yield that time or take that time?
I will take that.
Excellent.
Or yield that,
Oh,
sorry.
take Actually, you had,
I have,
you had 1 minute left. Did you
That's
want-
a very simple, we should be involved in these decisions, and to not have the people involved, to me, speaks to the type of leadership, because only a leader who wants to dictate, and not to include, but exclude, people who will, be affected by that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graves. Mr. Montgomery, would you like for me to repeat the question or give a comment and proceed?
I think okay.
Excellent. You are yielded 2 minutes. Your time starts now.
Probably the most important decision that this city makes will be our police chief. And considering that we do have an extremely diverse city where you have almost 100 different ethnic, culturally diverse groups and close to 130 different languages spoken, we need a police chief that's going to embrace the diversity, that understands the true concept of community policing, and also be able to address the needs of the city. I would like to hold a town hall meeting in each ward, because the public safety issues are different in each ward. Hold a town hall meeting in each ward, gather some information, and make that part of the job description in regards to the skills this chief must have coming in. If we're able to do that, then I think we can hire a chief that is innovative enough to deal with many of the challenges that we have been facing, whether it's police abuse, whether it's over-incarceration, whether if there's places that are underserved when it comes to public safety and how they're being underserved. I truly think, and also a police chief that can deal with, that can retain police officers, because we have a lot of police officers going over to Denver because of salary, because of retirement. We need a police chief that's going to be able to address that issue as well. So I think having that part of the job description and also having that person interview with key community organizations and also hosting town hall meetings as part of that interview, I think it is imperative that our community have input in the next police chief.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. That is your time.
Would you support raising the minimum wage for workers in Aurora?
Yes. Is that a yes or no question, or is that?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's a why or why not.
Yes, I do support it with provisions to support small businesses. I don't think it's something that you can do right away for some of our small businesses will be priced out. I do think we need to have that $15 an hour minimum wage, and I think for our small businesses, we sort of work with them incrementally to get there. You have mom and pop businesses that can be put out immediately if you just changed it overnight. But I do support it. Why? Because we need to have a livable wage. If we wait until the state, they're talking about $12 an hour, $12.50, and things of this nature, but prices are going up in housing, especially in the city of Aurora. September 11th, there was an article that came out about nationally that Aurora has seen a significant increase in rent and leasing. A one-bedroom is $1,200 and a two-bedroom is $1,500. I don't know how you're going to survive if you're only making $12 or $11 an hour. And to purchase a home at the market rate of $340, you have to have a combined household of 6 figures in order to qualify. So we need to have a livable wage so people can afford to live in Aurora, and that goes for people who are youth and our people who are elders. Because sometimes what we don't understand is that some people have retired but still can't pay their bills, still have to work. And if we're paying them a minimum wage, they will not be able to survive as things continue to increase, whether it's health care, whether it's paying tolls on E470 or whichever. It is imperative that we have a livable wage in the city of Aurora. And last but not least, if Denver approves their, sorry.
Ms. Grace?
Yes, I would support that. I support that with the caveat and the understanding that this will not fix the issue for the people in which need the minimum wage increased. The livable wage, in order to be able to afford food and housing and transportation, the minimum is at least $21 an hour. And so $15 an hour, that's closer, but it's not going to solve the problem. The problem at its core and at its root is that Aurora was never meant to be what it is today. And that's evident in the fact that we don't have it was meant to be the place where the people who worked in Denver lived. And that's why we have so many apartment complexes here. And that's why the wages are, while the state has maintained that minimum wage, that's why a lot of the jobs here don't offer the livable wages that a lot of people need in order to live out here in this current market. And so in actually addressing the core of the issue, we need to provide better options for careers. We need to train our children to not be the workforce of the future, but to be innovators and leaders and managers of corporations, starting their own businesses. And we need to find a way to be economically sustainable in and of ourselves. Unless we do that, increasing the minimum wage is never going to solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Grace, you had 20 seconds and you want to take that time or give that time?
I will yield it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, candidates complete the question phase from the audience of our mayoral candidate forum. We will now transition into closing statements. Each candidate will have 2.5 minutes for a closing statement. We will go in reverse order, in alphabetical order reverse, from our opening statements. So that would have us starting with you, Mr. Montgomery. You have 2.5 minutes for a closing statement. Your time starts now.
I have an overwhelming amount of love for the city. And I truly believe it is a city of opportunity. I just believe also that not everyone has access to that opportunity. There's a family I ran across not that long ago where the mother had just gotten housing. And she said, you know, my son has a place to go after school now. And that was her benchmark. The benchmark was a housing piece. The benchmark was my child has a safe place to go to school. But as a leader of the city, I want to extend that benchmark. I want that young man to know that he or she could be that engineer at Raytheon. He or she can run the Gaylord. He or she could be that astronaut at spaceport that's going to happen. He or she could be the commander of the Buckley Air Force Base. He or she could be the future entrepreneur that brings in manufacturing jobs and artificial technology, drone flying, drone science, and things of this nature. I truly believe if we have leadership in the city of Aurora that believe everyone should have access to the opportunities that exist in this city, we can address many of our issues. We can address homelessness. We can address affordable housing. We can make sure that when kids graduate from high school, that they have access to a job because they've been through an apprenticeship program, or they have access to college through Pickens, through Aurora Community College, or the opportunities that they have for scholarships at CSU. There's so much that can be done if you have leadership that has a vision, that embraces our diversity, not just as a political touch point, but also embracing our diversity to where these are individuals that are working within the city. Because it's always good to know you can speak the language, but you need people in the city that understands the culture so that we can make sure that we're providing them the services that they need and not just look at them as a political touch point. I look forward to serving you as the future leader of this city. And because of the nonprofit thing, I don't want to say mayor, but I look forward to serving you, and I encourage you to vote November 5th, 2019.
And that is your time. Thank you. Ms. Graves, this is the closing part of the forum, your closing statement. You have 2.5 minutes for your closing statement. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Well, again, my name is Tiffany Graves, and I am running in the upcoming 2019 election for mayor of Aurora. As a teen mom turned single mom, I've struggled, I've made mistakes, I've overcame addiction, I've been unjustly incarcerated, and like many of you, I've been unable to live my American dream. I have not received the promises that have been told to all of us with liberty and justice for all, but I do believe that Aurora can be a place where all are truly free, where all have the opportunity to be whatever they truly want to be. I believe Aurora can be a place where its citizens are financially free, financially independent, where our children seek careers in being a doctor, being an astronaut, or even just starting their own business within this city. But many of us are not able to achieve those dreams. I believe in the promises told to me. I've been arrested, I've been treated unfairly, and I realized that we must do something if we are going to see the change that we want. Our children and us parents, we worry about our children's safety every day when they go to school. We worry about gun violence. We worry about contact with police. And this is not a way of living if we are truly free. So we must do something to change that. By establishing productive intergovernmental relationships, we can create a system that encourages our children into being financially free, where safety and opportunity are available for everybody. And by capitalizing on the marijuana industry, we will see our revenues increase and take our piece of now over the $1 billion industry in Colorado, using these revenues to fund better educational programs for our children, putting them in careers that allow them to be financially independent, as well as increasing the revenues and encouraging our public service workers to be citizens who have came from these streets. I ask you to invest in me, to invest in the future of this city, and to stand and act for the betterment of the Aurora community at large.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. That is your time.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, so that will conclude our 2019 mayoral forum. I want to thank members from our community for coming out and engaging in the 2019 mayoral forum. I also want to thank the candidates for coming and speaking on these important issues that concern all of us Aurora voters. Also, thank you to CCJRC and the ACLU for co-sponsoring this event, and a big thank you to our moderators, JC and Dana, for their hard work they have put into this forum. Also, another thank you to the People's Building for providing this space for us in Aurora, and another shout out to Kim Kendrick for the food that we all ate before this. Thank you for providing us that as well. Just a reminder, the candidates participating, you cannot campaign or solicit any votes. SCC, CCJRC, and the ACLU do not endorse any candidate, and this evening is for public education purposes only. On the sign up here, if there's any questions that we did not have time to get to, please let the volunteers know, and we can send the questions out to the candidate and they can choose to answer those.